doing a lot of lives because it just take too long to upload on my phone, and I ain't figured out the YouTube, you know, GoPro and all that. But enough of the delays. Millionaire Mission, 1 Millionaire Mission clothing on IG. Let's get into it. Leviticus 8, chapter 8. And this is a part of the Bible, like this where they building the temple and getting all the priests and all that stuff in order. This is sort of like the mundane, boring sort of part of the Bible, but all of it's important from the beginning to the end. So try not to skip none, even when you get the numbers and they're doing a bunch of names. Just try to read all the names. There's some of them hard to pronounce, but just try to read them, because when you get farther in the future down the Bible, you'll see some of those names as in like towns or people or stuff like that. So the concentration of Aaron and his sons. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, take Aaron and his sons with him, and the garments, and the anointing oil, and the bull of the sin offering, and the 2 rams, and the basket of unleavened bread, and assemble all the congregation at the doorway of the tent of meeting. So Moses did as the Lord commanded him. When the congregation was assembled at the doorway of the tent of meeting, Moses said to the congregation, this is the thing which the Lord has commanded to do. Then Moses had Aaron and his sons come near and wash them with water. He put the tunic on him and grinded him with the sash and clothed him with the robe and put the ephod on him. And he grinded him with the artistic band of the ephod, which he tied it to him. He then placed the breastplate on him, and in the breastplate he put the urim, the thummim. He also placed the turban on his head, and the turban at its front he placed the golden plate, the holy crown, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Moses then took the anointed oil and anointed the tabernacle and all that was in it and consecrated them. He sprinkled some of it on the altar 7 times and anointed the altar and all its utensils and the basin and its stand to consecrate them. Then he poured some of the anointing oil on Aaron's head and anointed him to consecrate him. Next, Moses had Aaron's son come near and clothed them with tunics and girded them with sashes and bond caps on them, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Then he brought the bull of the sin offering, and Aaron and his sons laid their hand on the head of the bull of the sin offering. Next, Moses slaughtered it and took the blood with his fingers, put some of it around on the horn of the altar, and purified the altar. Then he poured out the rest of the blood at the base of the altar and consecrated it to make atonement for it. He also took all the fat that was on the entrails and the lobe of the liver and the 2 kidneys and their fat, and Moses offered it up in smoke on the altar. But the bull and his hides and his flesh and his refuse he burnt in the fire outside the camp, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Then he presented the ram of the burnt offering, and Aaron and his sons laid their hand on the head of the ram. Moses slaughtered it and sprinkled the blood all around the altar. When he had cut the ram into pieces, Moses offered up the head and the pieces of the suit in smoke. After he had washed the entrails and the legs with water, Moses offered up the whole ram in smoke on the altar. It was a burnt offering for a soothing aroma. It was an offering by fire to the Lord, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. Then he presented the second ram, the ram of ordination, and Aaron and his sons laid their hands on the head of rams. Laid his hands on the head of the ram. Moses slaughtered it and took some of its blood and put it on the lobe of Aaron's right ear, and on the thumb of his right hand, and on the big toe of his right foot. He also had Aaron's son come near, and Moses put some of the blood on the lobe of their right ear, and on the thumb of their right hand, and on the big toe of their right foot. Moses then sprinkled the rest of the blood around the altar. He took the fat tail, and all the fat that was on the entrails, and the lobe of the liver, and the 2 kidneys and their fat, and their right thigh. From the basket of unleavened bread that was before the Lord, he took 1 unleavened cake and 1 cake of bread mixed with oil and 1 wafer, and placed them on the portions of fat and on the right thigh. He then put all these on the hands of Aaron and on the hands of his sons, and presented them as a wave offering before the Lord. Then Moses took them from their hands and offered them up in smoke on the altar with burnt offerings. They were an ordination offering for a soothing aroma. It was an offering by fire to the Lord. Moses also took the breast and presented it. Just was thinking that I put myself in the sleeper berth for off duty. I think I've been off duty for almost 31 hours instead of sleeper berth. That's crazy. 32 hours. Okay, whatever. Then Moses took their hands and offered them up in smoke on the altar with the burnt offering. They were an ordination offering for a soothing aroma. It was an offering by fire to the Lord. Moses also took the breast and presented it for a wave offering before the Lord. It was Moses' portion of the ram of ordination, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. So Moses took some of the anointing oil and some of the blood which was on the altar, and sprinkled it on Aaron and his garments, on his sons, and on the garments of his sons with him. Excuse me. And he consecrated Aaron and his garment and his sons and the garments of his sons with him. Then Moses said to Aaron and to his sons, boil the flesh at the doorway of the tent of meeting and eat it there together with the bread which is in the basket of the ordination offering, just as I commanded, saying, Aaron and his sons shall eat it. The remainder of the flesh and of the bread you shall burn in fire. You shall not go outside the doorway of the tent of meeting for 7 days until the day that the period of your ordination is full. For he will ordain you through 7 days. The Lord has commanded to do as has been done this day to make atonement on your behalf. At the doorway of the tent of meeting, moreover, you shall remain day and night for 7 days and keep charge of the Lord, so that you will not die, for so I have commanded. Thus Aaron and his sons did all the things which the Lord had commanded Moses. Aaron offers sacrifices. This is chapter 9. Now it came about on the 8th day that Moses called Aaron and his sons and the elders of Israel, and he said to Aaron, take for yourself a calf, a bull for a sin offering, and a ram for a burnt offering, both without defect, and offer them before the Lord. Then to the sons of Israel you shall speak, saying, take a male goat for a sin offering, and a calf and a lamb, both 1 year old without defect, for a burnt offering, and an ox and a ram for peace offering to sacrifice before the Lord, and grain offering mixed with oil, for today the Lord will appear to you. So they took what Moses had commanded to the front of the tent of meeting, and the whole congregation came near and stood before the Lord. Moses said, this is the thing which the Lord had commanded you to do, that the glory of the Lord may appear to you. Moses then said to Aaron, come near to the altar and offer your sin offering and your burnt offering, that you may make atonement for yourself and for the people. Then make the offering for the people, that you may make atonement for them, just as the Lord has commanded. So Aaron came near to the altar and slaughtered the calf of the sin offering, which was for himself. Aaron's son presented the blood to him, and he dipped his finger in the blood and put some on the horns of the altar, and poured the rest of the blood at the base of the altar. The fat and the kidneys and the lobe of the liver of the sin offering he offered up in smoke on the altar, just as the Lord had commanded Moses. The flesh and the skin, however, he burnt with fire outside the camp. Then he slaughtered the burnt offering, and Aaron's sons handed the blood to him, and he sprinkled it around the altar. They handed the burnt offering to him in pieces with the head, and he offered them up in smoke on the altar. He also washed the entrails and the legs and offered them up in the smoke with burnt offering on the altar. Then he presented the people offering and took the goat of the sin offering, which was for the people, and slaughtered it and ordered it for sin like the first. He also presented the burnt offering and offered it according to the ordinances. Now he presented the grain offering and filled his hand with some of it, offered it up in smoke on the altar, besides the burnt offering of the morning. Then he slaughtered the ox and the ram, the sacrifice of peace offering, which was for the people, and Aaron's son handed the blood to him, and he sprinkled it around on the altar. As for the portions of fat from the ox and from the ram, the fat tail and the fat covering, and the kidney and the lobe of the liver, they now placed the portions of fat on the breast, and he offered them up in smoke on the altar. But the breast and the thigh and the right thigh Aaron presented as a wave offering before the Lord, just as Moses had commanded. Then Aaron lifted up his hands towards the people and blessed them, and he stepped down after making the sin offering and the burnt offering and the peace offering. Moses and Aaron went into the tent of the meeting. When they came out and blessed the people, the glory of the Lord appeared to all of them. Then the fire came out from before the Lord and consumed the burnt offering and the portions of fat on the altar. And when all the people saw it, they shouted and fell on their faces. You know what? 10 is kind of short, Charlie, so we're going to bust out 10 too. We 10 minutes in, we can bust out 10. Chapter 10. The sin of Nabad and Abu. Now Nabad and Abu, the sons of Aaron, took their respective fire pans, and after putting fire in them, placed incense on it and offered strange fire before the Lord, which he had not commanded them. And the fire came out from the presence of the Lord and consumed them, and they died before the Lord. Then Moses said to Aaron, it is what the Lord spoke, saying, by those who come near me, I will be treated as holy, and before all the people I will be honored. So Aaron therefore kept silent. Damn, Aaron just lost 2 sons, bro. He can't say shit. Them boys doing something they're supposed to do. Kids just be offers coming close to the Lord. Them boy got burnt though. That's crazy. Moses also called to Mishael and Elizaphan, the sons of Aaron's uncles, Uzzah, and said to them, come forward, carry your relatives away from the front of the sanctuary to the outside of the camp. So they came forward and carried them still in their tunics to the outside of the camp, as Moses had said. Then Moses said to Aaron and to his sons Eleazar and Itmar, do not uncover your heads nor tear your clothes, so that you will not die, that he will not become wrathful against all the congregation. But your kinsmen, the whole house of Israel, shall bewail the burning which the Lord has brought about. You shall not even go out from the doorway of the tent meeting, or you will die, for the Lord's anointing oil is upon you. So they did according to the word of Moses. The Lord then spoke to Aaron, saying, do not drink wine or strong drink, neither you nor your sons with you, when you come into the tent of meeting, so that you will not die. It is a perpetual statute throughout your generations. And so as to make a distinction between the holy and the profane, and between the unclean and the clean, and so as to teach the sons of Israel all the statutes which the Lord had spoken to them through Moses. Then Moses spoke to Aaron and to his surviving sons, Eleazar and Itmar, take the grain offering that is left over from the Lord's offering by fire, and eat it unleavened, besides the altar, for it is most holy. You shall eat it moreover in a holy place, because it is your due and your sons' due out of the Lord's offering by fire. For thus I have been commanded. The breast of the wave offering, however, and the thigh of the offering you may eat in a clean place, you and your sons and your daughters with you. For they have been given as your due and your sons' due out of the sacrifice of the peace offering of the sons of Israel. The thigh offering by lifting up, and the breast offering by waving, they shall bring along with the offering by fire of the portions of fat, to present as a wave offering before the Lord. So it shall be a thing perpetually due you and your sons with you, just as the Lord has commanded. But Moses searched carefully for the goat for the sin offering. Behold, it had been burned up. So he was angry with Aaron's surviving son Eleazar and Itmar, saying, why did you not eat the sin offering at the holy place? For it is most holy, and he gave it to you to bear away the guilt of the congregation, to make atonement for them before the Lord. Behold, since its blood had not been brought inside into the sanctuary, you should certainly have clean eaten it in the sanctuary, just as I commanded. But Aaron spoke to Moses, behold, this very day they presented their sin offering and the burnt offering before the Lord. When things like these happened to me, if I had eaten a sin offering today, would it have been good in the sight of the Lord? When Moses heard that, it seemed good in his sight. But Aaron spoke to Moses, behold, this very day they presented their sin offering and their burnt offering before the Lord. When things like these happened to me, if I had eaten a sin offering today, would it have been good in the sight of the Lord? When Moses heard that, it seemed good in his sight. Let me see. We're on 11. We have 15 minutes. Okay. Let's just go into 11 too. We 15 minutes in. This might take us to 20 minutes, but it's about laws and animals for food. So let's see what we can conclude. I always had a problem with this, because if you're talking like hoof, foots, and I'm like, I don't know what animal got hoof, foot, clue, foot. I don't know. I guess you gotta do your research on it. Okay, laws about animals for food. Leviticus chapter 11. Let's go. The Lord spoke again to Moses and to Aaron, saying to them, speak to the sons of Israel, saying, these are the creatures which you may eat from all the animals that are on the earth, whatever divides a hoof, thus making split hoofs, and choose the cud among the animals that you may eat. Nevertheless, you are not to eat of these among those which chew the cud, or among those which divide the hoof. The camel, so we ain't supposed to eat the camel, for it chews the cud, it does not divide the hoof, it is unclean to you. Likewise, the shapan, for it chews the cud, it does not divide the hoof, it is unclean to you. The rabbit also, for it chews the cud, it does not divide the hoof, it is unclean to you. And the pig, for though it divides the hoof, thus making a split hoof, it does not chew the cud, it is unclean to you. You shall not eat of their flesh, nor touch their carcass, they are unclean to you. These you may eat, whatever is in the water, all that have fins and scales, those in the water, in the sea, or in the river you may eat. But whatever is in the sea and in the rivers that does not have fins and scales, among all the teeming life of the water, and among all the living creatures that are in the water, they are detestable things to you, and you shall be abhorrent to you. You may not eat of their flesh, and their carcass you shall detest. Whatever is in the water does not have fins and scales is abhorrent to you. So we're not supposed to eat stuff in the water that don't got fins and scales. Avoid the unclean. These, moreover, you shall detest among the birds. They are abhorrent, not to be eaten. The eagle and the vulture and the buzzard, and the kite and the falcon in his kind, every raven in his kind, and the ostrich and the owl and the seagull and the hawk in his kind, and the little owl and the cormorant and the great owl and the white owl and the pelican and the carrion vulture and the stork and the heron in his kind, and the hoopoe and the bat. All the winged insects that walk on all fours are detestable to you, yet these you may eat among all the winged insects which walk on all fours, those which have above their feet jointed legs, which wish to jump on the earth. These of them you may eat, locusts in his kind, and the devastating locusts in his kind, and the crickets in his kind, and the grasshoppers in his kind. But all other winged insects which are four-footed are detestable to you. So God said we can eat grasshoppers. That seemed detestable. Yuck. A grasshopper, bro? I guess I be seeing them like having delicacies over there in China. To be having like the chocolate covered grasshoppers. Like, bro, no, bro. Like, oh my gosh, no. Okay. Verse 24. By these, moreover, you will be made unclean. Whoever touches their carcass becomes unclean until evening. Whoever picks up any of their carcasses shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. Concerning all the animals which divide the hoof, but do not make a split hoof, or which do not chew the cud, they are unclean to you. Whoever touches them becomes unclean. Also, whatever walks on its paws among all the creatures that walk on all fours are unclean to you. Whoever touches their carcass becomes unclean until evening. And the one who picks up their carcass shall wash his clothes and become unclean until evening. They are unclean to you. Now these are to you the unclean among the swarming things which swarm on the earth, the mole and the mouse, and the great lizard in his kind, and the gecko and the crocodile, and the lizard, and the sand reptile, and the chameleon. These are to you the unclean among all the swarming things. Whoever touches them when they are dead becomes unclean until evening. Also, anything on which one of them may fall when they are dead becomes unclean, including any wooden article or clothing or skin or sack, any particle of which use is made. It shall be put in the water and be unclean until evening. Then it becomes clean. As for an earthenware vessel into which one of them may fall, wherever it is, it becomes unclean, and you shall break the vessel. Any other food which may be eaten on which water comes shall become any other food which may be eaten on which water comes shall become unclean, and any liquid which may be drunk in every vessel shall become unclean. Everything, moreover, on which part of the carcass may fall becomes unclean. An oven A stove shall be smashed, they are unclean and shall continue as unclean to you. Nevertheless, a spring or a cistern collecting water shall be clean, though the one who touches their carcass shall be unclean. If part of the carcass falls on any seed for sowing which is to be sown, it is clean. Though if water is put on the seed and a part of the carcass falls on it, it is unclean to you. Also, if one of the animals dies which you have for food, the one who touches the carcass becomes unclean until evening. He too who eats some of the carcass shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. And the one who picks up his carcass shall wash his clothes and be unclean until evening. Not every swarming thing that swarms on the earth is detestable, not to be eaten. Whatever crawls on its bellies, whatever walks on all fours, whatever has many feet, in respect to every swarming thing that swarms on the earth, you should not eat them, for they are detestable. Do not render yourself detestable through any of the swarming things that swarm, and you should not make yourselves unclean with them, so that you become unclean. For I am the Lord your God. Concentrate yourself therefore and be holy, for I am holy. And you shall not make for yourselves unclean with any of the swarming things that swarm on the earth, for I am the Lord who brought you up from the land of Egypt to be your God. Thus you shall be holy, for I am holy. This is the law regarding the animals and the bird, and every living thing that moves in the water, and everything that swarms on the earth, to make a distinction between the unclean and the clean, and between the edible creatures and the creatures which is not to be eaten. Laws of motherhood. Oh, that's gonna be a good one. This one kind of good and short. Then we over the time. It's 21 minutes. We're gonna keep going though. This is chapter 12. It's laws of motherhood. Then the Lord, this Leviticus 12. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the sons of Israel, saying, When a woman gives birth and bears a male child, then she shall be unclean for 7 days, as in the days of her menstruation. She shall be unclean. On the 8th day the flesh of his foreskin shall be circumcised. Then she shall remain in the blood of her purification for 33 days. She shall not touch any consecrated thing, nor enter the sanctuary until the days of her purification are completed. But if she bears a female child, then she shall be unclean for 2 weeks, as in her menstruation, the period, the blood period. And she shall remain in the blood of her purification for 66 days. When the days of her purification are completed, for a son or for a daughter, she shall bring to the priest at the door of the tent of meeting a 1-year-old lamb for a burnt offering, and a young pigeon or a turtle dove for a sin offering. Then he shall offer it before the Lord and make atonement for her, and she shall be cleansed from the flow of her blood. This is the law for her who bears a child, whether a male or female. But if she cannot afford a lamb, then she shall take 2 turtle doves or 2 pigeons, one for a burnt offering and the other for a sin offering. The priest shall make atonement for her, and she will be clean. So there you have it. The next one is chapter 13, and is the test for leprosy. So there you have it, good folks. We back on our Bible reading, trying to start in the morning. And we're gonna get back to working out. We get back at the gym and push-ups and sit-ups, and we're gonna lift some weights in the gym. Yeah, we're gonna hit them weights. We ain't gonna go in there running on no treadmill. We're gonna go in there and hit the weights. You know what I'm saying? We're getting ripped, baby. Get back built like we was when we first came home from the chain gang. You feel me? Get them things bite right. Get it bite together. You heard me? It's Millionaire Mission. If you didn't know, now you know. Shout out to that shine of mine that want to be somebody else's. That's not gonna happen. You're mine. Sorry.